Hello everyone, thank you for being here. This is Goose Auto Works, and this is what we're doing today. The first half of this is basically going to be just removing push pins like this. And essentially, any push pin that you can see from the top side is what you're going to want to pull off. And even after we do that, there's going to be a couple that then become exposed on either side here that we'll remove, but we'll get into that as we get to it. Then with the headlight trim loosened up, it doesn't need to be removed completely, just loosened up enough to where we can access this 8mm bolt down here at the bottom. And there are 3 of these pins in this fabric shroud. Here's one of them, and then there is another one right here, and then the last one is a little bit hard to get on camera, be right down here. And so for that 8mm bolt that's down there at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and use an extension as well, and I'm going to throw on an adapter for an impact wrench. You could obviously use a ratchet for this, but this will just make the process a little bit quicker. Let me recap that for you because it might have been a little bit difficult to follow along. So these lower push pins here in the fabric shroud were pretty difficult to access for me from the side or from the front. So what I ended up doing was just skipping forward a little bit, removing these 10mm bolts that are at the top, unplugging these 2 harnesses, lifting the grill up, and then pulling it out a little bit. And what that allowed me to do was actually reach down behind and access these, which was a whole lot easier, like I said, than from the side or from the front. Just be sure you don't pull it out too far because this fabric could rip, but that's what worked for me. Give that a shot and see if it's a little bit better for you. With the old grill off, before we can put the new grill on, we're going to need to transfer the shutter assembly. And so to do that, there's going to be 4 10mm bolts along the perimeter. So there's one here in this little cavity, one on the exact opposite side here, and then 2 on the outsides here. There's also going to be an 8mm bolt here in the middle. There's also going to be these 4 push pins along the top, and then 3 more 10mm bolts on these little plastic studs here. So we'll need to take all those off, and then we can transfer this over to the new one. So on to the new grill. I've already swapped over the letters. It did not come in this orientation to begin with, but y'all should be able to figure that part out. It's pretty straightforward. And as far as the studs that are in all of the corners here, it actually came with some nuts on each one in the kit, so I'm just going to use those instead of reusing the ones from the factory. And there is no 8mm bolt here in the middle, but we do still have these 3 plastic studs along the bottom, so we'll put those other nuts on there. And then there's the 4 tabs in the top for those 4 push pins. Alright, so filming a little bit out of sequence here, but I needed to wait on some parts to come in to finish the wiring portion, but that's what we're going to jump into right now. And so the first step to do that is we're going to need to remove this snorkel here to gain access to the headlight connector that's in the back of the headlight. So you should still have these top two push pins removed from that upper shroud removal. So to get the snorkel off, the only other thing that you need to do is there's an 8mm bolt right here, and you can remove that and detach the snorkel from the airbox. I have noticed that that's kind of difficult to actually free up even after that bolt is loose. So this is a 13mm. I'm just going to take that out and just kind of hinge this whole thing up. All you're really needing is to get this out of the way enough to be able to feel back there and get that connector. With that 13mm removed, you can just take a pry tool, undo the clip that's holding this little wire in the back so that you're not pulling on it when you go to release this. There's also going to be two little rubber grommets at the bottom of the airbox, so just give this a nice firm pull up and it should disconnect no problem. Then just snake your hand behind the headlight to access the connector. And again, this is for the factory LED headlights. The halogen lights are going to be different. They will have different connectors, different wires, different wiring colors. For me, what I am interested in on this connector is going to be this wire that is the third from the right. It is a blue with a gray stripe wire. Next to it is a gray with a blue stripe wire. Pay very close attention. We are looking for the blue with the gray. That is going to be the parking light. The one next to it is your daytime running light. So if you have it tapped into this one, the lights will only be on during the daytime, and at night they'll turn off. So it's kind of opposite of what you want. For me, I want these lights on anytime that my orange park light is on. And so that is going to be, again, this blue with the gray stripe wire. Then we will also be tapping into our black with the yellow wire here. That's going to be our ground. With the grill harness run plugged into the three respective lights and the other end snaked through, next we're going to do is attach a couple of little connectors here. So this is going to be a little system called a T-tap. And so the way that this works is the wire that you want to tap into is going to go into this little clamshell. And when you squeeze it down, it's actually going to cut into the insulation and make contact with the copper wire inside. And then you can take your little spade connector here and plug it into the backside. I typically don't like little connectors like this or like quick splice connectors. I usually prefer to just solder something in and wrap it up, but due to the amount of workspace that you have here, I think this is going to be just a better solution. But you will want to kind of check on these every so often, make sure that they don't come loose, make sure that everything's functioning the way it's supposed to. The way you'll connect these is to go ahead and strip off a little bit of material on the end if it's not already cut for you. Mine is, fortunately, so I just need to pull off this little bit of insulation from the end. And then you're just going to take the wire that you've got and you're going to slip it through this little spade connector here. And looking at this, it's actually a little bit longer than I want, and I'm concerned about it crimping down, so I'm actually going to fold this over on itself a little bit and then push it through. Alright, and once it's in there, just take a pair of wire crimpers and crimp it down. Okay. And yep, that's on there pretty good. Okay, and now to try it out, unlock. Very good. And let's try start it. Perfect. Alright, so that's it. It works. We are done. Like and subscribe if this video helped you out. Comment with any questions, and I will see you in the next one.